Hello and welcome to the Swan Song Project Podcast. My name is Ben Buddy Slack and I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project and the host of this podcast. The Swan Song Project is a charity and we help people facing the end of their lives or dealing with a bereavement to write and record their own original songs. We believe in celebrating lives, making memories and leaving legacies. If you'd like to find out more about the charity, you can check out our website, which is swansongproject.co.uk. The podcast features songwriters. And every episode, I speak to a different songwriter, we talk about one of their songs, they share with us a songwriting tip, and they also share with us a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. This episode features Richard Knott, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so today I'm here with Richard Knott. Thanks for joining me, Richard.
No problem. Nice to see you, Ben.
Yeah, looking forward to talking to you. For anyone new to these podcasts, with the Swan Song Project Podcast, we do it in three sections. First, we're going to have one of my guest songs. We're going to talk a little bit about how they wrote that. Section 2, I'm going to ask Richard to share with us a songwriting tip. And then section 3, we're going to talk about a song that's meaningful to Richard in some way related to bereavement. So I'll hand it over to you, Richard, and ask you to introduce your song for us, please.
Thanks, Ben. Right. Well, this is a song of mine called The Shortest Day. And the first thing I should say is that it's not me singing it. It's a friend of mine called Hilary Morell, who's a great singer. I did write it and I play the instruments on it and I do the backing vocal. It's not really a typical song of the style of music I do. I'm normally a sort of blues ragtime guitar player, but I do love Latin Brazilian music. And this is a song in that style with some of the elements that I get from Brazilian music, not just the music, but the thinking behind it, the sort of feeling behind it. So we talk a bit more about that after you've played the song.
Brilliant. So this is The Shortest Day.
Shortest day of the year, sweet summer's furthest frontier, circling the wagons round a dwindling pool of light, staring out into the longest night, the darkest day of the year. Familiar ghosts reappear, singing in the shadows just beyond the campfire's glow. Words of longing you already know. You hear that song all winter long, but when you wish for summer, you're wishing springtime gone. The coldest day of the year, the air so still and so clear, makes the far horizon seem 1,000 miles away. Is it really closer day by day? You sing that song all winter long, but when you wish for summer, you're wishing springtime gone. To the sea, with you and me, stuck in this backwater, when we'd rather race downstream. Time, it moves when it should flow, but who's to know? Can the swirling rapids be as distant as they seem in our frozen dream?
Okay, brilliant. So that was The Shortest Day by Richard Knott, sung by, what was the name again? Sorry,
Hilary Morel.
Hilary Morel, yeah.
She's someone who she plays in local folk clubs and so on, and a lot of people say she's got a voice a bit like Sandy Denny, which is a pretty good compliment, isn't it? But on that song, she just seemed to get that sort of floaty Brazilian feel really nicely, and I just think she nails it. I do that song sometimes solo, but I just don't feel I do it justice after her version of it, you know.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, when you've done a song in one arrangement, then doing it in a different way, how different the song can feel.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's a lovely piece. It's definitely one that's resonating with me listening to it in this particular time where I'm very much looking forward to summer myself.
Well, I think, that's kind of where it came from. On the surface, it's about being stuck in winter and wanting it to be summer. But there's this thing in Brazilian music and in Portuguese music as well. You heard fado, the Portuguese style of it's called Portuguese blues sometimes. It's a very emotional music full of nostalgia. And there's this concept in Brazilian music called, I'm not sure I can pronounce this word properly, but I think it's pronounced saudade, Saudade. And it's really, really hard to explain what it means. I looked it up on Wikipedia, and I'll tell you what Wikipedia says about it. It says saudade is a deep emotional state of nostalgic or profound melancholic longing for an absent something or someone that one cares for and or loves. Moreover, it often carries a repressed knowledge that the object of longing might never be had again.
Wow.
That's pretty deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's this thing about it's bittersweet. It's remembering something that's intensely pleasurable, but tinged with sadness. It's got both of the elements, the light and the dark, in at the same time. And that's something that you find a lot, I think, in Brazilian music. It's got both elements. And in that respect, it's pretty much like life. Life's got good bits and it's got bad bits. And if you're lucky, they'll even out, and maybe the good bits will outweigh the bad bits. But don't be complacent if your life's pretty good, because at some point there'll be a bad thing. And likewise, if it's bad, don't worry too much, because it'll probably get better. So that sort of flows through the tune. I can't say I was thinking that when I wrote it particularly, but I think that's one of the things about songwriting, that you don't always know quite what you're writing about until afterwards. Maybe even a year or two afterwards, you suddenly think, oh, there's more to that song than I thought at the time. As if your subconscious is doing some of the work and you're not even aware of it, So I'm pretty sure, it was written in winter, and The Shortest Day, of course, is like the fulcrum of winter, isn't it? It's the point at which there's the least light and the most darkness. And, you just think, please, give me some sunshine, give me some springtime or some summertime. But then, the longest day, the opposite end of the year, it's great. But then from that point, it's downhill all the way towards autumn and winter again. So even when you get what you want, it's going to be short-lived. It's just the nature of things. So I suppose, underlying it is the thought that, make the most of life, make the most of today. Don't always be looking ahead for something that might in fact never happen. But at the same time, after I wrote it, and certainly after that performance by Hilary, I just started feeling a bit different about it somehow, that it wasn't just about that, if you know what I mean. It wasn't as simple as make the most of today. It was something more. I hate talking about this sometimes, because it sounds like you've got some grand vision and it's very pretentious, and there's some lesson in it, and that's not it at all. But you look back on it and you think, that song is a bit deeper than I thought it was somehow. And really, it's all about the bridge. I mean, the first 2 or 3 verses of the chorus are about what it's like to be stuck in winter and to be looking forward and wanting it to become summertime. And there's this thing in the chorus about when you wish for summer, you're wishing springtime gone. So, enjoy the journey, don't just look at the destination, sort of thing. But then in the bridge, it seems to me that it becomes more about life in general as opposed to just, I wish it was nice weather, there's this thing about, can the swirling rapids be as distant as they seem? Because I'm using this image of a river as being time, a river to the sea, with you and me stuck in this backwater when we'd rather race downstream. What are the rapids? What did I mean when I said that? Can the swirling rapids be as distant as they seem? Swirling rapids are not something you want to move towards, are they? They're something that could, submerge you and see you off. And I suppose what it comes down to for me is, well, I don't know. I'm looking forward to summer now, but something terrible could happen between now and summer. And I should just really be enjoying what I'm doing now and making the most of life. And that's what I'm trying to do. Actually, a sunny day like today, and the sun's coming through the window now and blinding me. It's easier to think that. But when you are stuck in the worst part of winter and it's dark and you're stuck in the house and you can't see people, it's very easy just to have this sort of tunnel vision that you just want this. But who knows what might be between now and there. And I want it to be summer, but that's another 6 months of my life gone. I don't necessarily have that many left. I don't know. Nobody knows how many they've got left, do they? I remember when I was about 12 wanting to be 18, and then when I was 20 wanting to be 30, and it's really bad. You really shouldn't do that. You should enjoy every moment you've got, and as they say, act as if it's maybe your last. So really, there was a darker side that came in, but only really revealed itself to me after I'd written it. And that's the thing about that style of music. The music itself is quite light and floaty and summery, beachy almost. But the lyrics, to me at least, have got something a bit more to it than that. How did that sound really pretentious? I hope it didn't.
Yeah, no, it's great, Richard. It's really nice to I really like when songs are thought about on that level, and I love songs that reveal themselves in time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's always
the thing. Yeah, and even reveal themselves to the writer. That is the strange thing. I mean, another thing I like in music is layers of meaning that you can take whatever it gives you from. Because I remember at school once we were doing some poetry lesson in English, and I was kind of obsessed. What did he mean? What did the poet mean by this? And the teacher was very good at asking, what does it matter what the poet meant? What matters is what it means to you.
Yeah.
Might be interesting to know what they meant, but actually, how does it affect you? Because the person on the receiving end is as much part of the song's purpose or the poem's purpose as the person who wrote it.
Yeah.
And I've had people say to me after a gig, that's a really funny song. And I'm thinking, seriously, you thought that was funny? You might have had a joke in it, but it doesn't make it a funny song. So you can never say what people are going to get out of music. I guess, but I like the fact that there are different layers and different people take different things.
I used to always think with songs, I like songs that, like you say, we're in them layers. So like you can listen to it in many different ways and still get something out of it. First time you listen to it, you might just like the tune and you sing along with it a bit, or it might make you move or something like that. Then you might come back to it and be like, oh wait a minute, what's going on here in the story? I didn't realize this, or this reference here. What's this about? And
so many times, you can love a song and not have the faintest clue what the lyrics are about. It's how it makes you feel. But I think that's the magic of music, really, because songs, particularly music, can make you feel things. It can give you emotional response. But there's something about the connection of words and music and the human voice delivering the words that I think is just, I've always loved music anyway, but I just think it's one of the most brilliant art forms there is. And when you talk about missing gigging, that's the thing. When you're playing it to someone, it's so in the moment. It's not a recording. It's not something you've labored over and tweaked every last bit. It's real, and it goes wrong, and they might be drunk, or they might be miserable, or they might be happy, or whatever.
It's like the song's alive in that space. That's what I always think. Like there's something like when you're playing a song live in front of people, that's like I say, it's not the recording, it's not any other version of it. That's what's happening there, and your performance. You might be reacting to the atmosphere in the room. You might see someone's eyes light up or something like that, or see someone singing along, and that might change it in a little way. It's
definitely. The best times are when actually you can sort of tune out the rest of the people who are there, and you're just in your own little world. Because I found when I started performing, I came to it quite late, I was just hyper aware of, oh, someone's on their phone, or I can hear the coffee machine over there, or someone's talking, or, you know, whatever it might be, or this string's slightly out of tune. I was completely, you know, taking in all this information. And the actual performance was relying on autopilot. Well, that's not really the best way of doing it. The better way of doing it is accept that they're there, learn how to deal with them, learn how to deal with the noise and the odd sort of heckle if necessary, but actually be there in the performance and make sure that you're doing it. And if there is what I tend to do, if there is distraction in the room, I'll just find someone who's watching and listening, and I'll play for them, and I'll make eye contact, and
that's one of the things.
Try to make sure that it's like a conversation.
Yeah,
in them, you know.
That's what I think. It's that kind of balance between, like, I've done the same where, like, I've either tried to tune everything out or I've been too aware, and like, because you don't want to, like, if someone leaves when you perform, and you don't want to be like, oh, why have they left? Have they left because I'm doing badly? Get back here. Whereas really, they might leave funny, might have a bus to catch or something like that. So you don't overthink those things. But then also, like, I do like to recognize when you see someone who's really into it, singing along, like, when you see someone singing along to one of your songs, it's like, that's really, and it's nice to make those eye contacts and
absolutely, yeah,
in that way. But it's that balance of then not getting out of your head.
And a lot of my music is, the guitar side is quite rhythmic. It's a lot of alternating bass guitar, and I watch for people's feet. If I can see someone's foot tapping, I relax, because I think they're getting it. Someone's getting it. It's worth doing this. I'm not just playing to a brick wall, you know. Because I think the first thing that people get is the rhythm. They don't necessarily get the words. They don't. The first part of the experience for the audience, I think, is the rhythm, and I think it's the most important part of performance in many ways. You can play wrong notes, and people they've gone. You know, people are looking ahead, but if their feet are tapping, then they're in the music, and I that's what I always watch for. But yeah, you're right. The person who walks out halfway through it, you just want to shout, "Get back in!"
Yeah. Back to the song, something that came to me when we were talking about it, because literally, like, we were walking the dog earlier on, and it's, really cold, and we were saying that, like, oh, I want some hot weather, I'm kind of tired, it's been snowing here a lot today. And then he was talking about this. It's that thing where, like, you don't want to wish your time away, and it's also, so, like, at the minute I would really like some nice weather. I'd like to not have to wear all my layers when I go out, but then I don't want to not have a few months of or everything else that goes on in my life. Like, if it's like, if someone said, like, oh, well, you can go to summer now, it'd be like, well, I'd like the summer weather, but I don't want to miss out on these next few months of everything else that's going on. And it's kind of trying to appreciate that, like, the snow is nice. It is pretty to watch the snow fall, and like, I like watching the dog play in the snow, so they're kind of benefits. But
I think the trouble is, the one thing that we do all want to be over is this sense of being trapped, isn't it? This idea, and I mean, it's been almost a year now, and I think, well, if you're like 10 or 20 years old, a year doesn't make that much difference. But when you get to my age, you think that's one of those years I'm not going to get it back, So I do think, the sooner this is over, the better. But I'm thinking, well, it's already, we're well into the new year. It's getting lighter in the evenings. When the clocks change at the end of March, it's light till 8 o'clock if you get a nice day. And I'm looking forward now, but I'm not thinking, oh, I want to be there now. Let me hibernate until it happens. I am enjoying, I'm going to enjoy the process. I've decided it's the only way to do it. You've got to force yourself. Otherwise, you might as well hibernate. Vitamin D, I recommend as well. That's very, I would take vitamin D in the winter. You don't get the sunlight. And I found this year particularly seems to have worked quite well.
Yeah. And the time goes quicker when you engage with stuff, doesn't it? If you're just kind of trying to waste your time away, it takes forever. But if you're doing something, it passes a lot quicker.
Well, you even miss little things like, going out and buying a new television or something. I don't know. The fact that you can get it delivered, but it's just, you want to go out and see people. Even if you're not talking to anyone, you just want to be amongst other human beings. Much as I like being at home with my wife, that's great. But, and I'm not a particularly sociable person. I'm, quite introverted, really. But there's no doubt I've missed it. I've missed that feeling of humanity being together. And it's particularly weird when, there is this threat to humanity. I don't mean in the sort of apocalyptic sense necessarily, but we're all under the threat of this thing. And when we're all under threat, it's good to be together, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the blitz spirit, as they say. And that's the one thing we can't do. And it's a strange thing how we used to take it for granted that you could shake hands with someone or hug them.
Yeah.
Or even be within 2 meters of them.
Not have to wear a mask in a shop.
Yeah, that's just so weird. Yeah. But anyway.
Back to your song, something else I just want to touch on before we move on is, so you mentioned about the similarity with the Brazilian and the Portuguese music. Was that something that you'd had thought about going into it? So you said that the music was kind of inspired by that stuff, and the theme also is, but then also you mentioned that the theme kind of revealed itself more as you went on. When you started writing it, did you have an idea that you were going to do something musically in that style, and then the theme just developed as it came, or how did it come about?
Yeah, well, what people often, when you probably get this, when people know you write songs, that the first question is, well, what comes first, the music or the lyrics? And the answer is, well, it can be either, but more and more I've noticed it's the music that comes first. On this song, it definitely was. And I think I was playing around with some jazzy sort of Brazilian style chords and a Brazilian type, a bossa nova sort of rhythm. And the nice thing in that style is you're always tempted to go major to minor or minor to major. You're tempted to change the mood and to put in these to use extended chords that suggest things, that suggest melancholy or nostalgia or emotion. And I think, in fact, it was probably the bridge that I got the music for first. And I thought, well, and that the bridge goes to minor key from the major. And I just thought, well, it would be nice to write a song in this kind of Brazilian style and to bring in this light and shade thing. And I just set off, I suppose, with this idea that it's we're at the darkest point of the year. We're looking towards the lightest point of the year, but as soon as we'll have reached that point, we'll be heading to the darkest point again. And that sort of circularity of it, I guess, was appealing to me in the sense of minor to major, major to minor. Mm. You're going to be like this, you know, you reach the point that you wanted to reach, and then you're going to be depressed because you've gone past it, like a kid looking forward to Christmas, you know, and then on Boxing Day it's all over. So the music started it, and the music often suggests not exactly a topic for a song and not necessarily lyrics, but it suggests a mood, I think. And I think that's what happened here, that the mood was one of light and dark having to exist together. There's no light without dark, and there's no dark without light. And I just took it from there and started writing about the concept of the shortest day of the year and what it feels like. And I think probably, as with a lot of songs, I just set off and trusted that I'd get somewhere. You know, I certainly didn't have the song mapped out. As I say, I think I had the music for the bridge first, but you know, when you're writing a song, you usually have a rough idea of the structure, whether it's going to have a chorus, whether it's going to be, you know, verse first or chorus first. And when you've had a couple of verses and then maybe a couple of choruses, you tend to have a bridge or you know, some sort of change of direction. And then when it comes back to the main theme, you've got to wrap it up. You've got to sort of lay out the point of the song, really, to come to a satisfactory conclusion. So I definitely just set off writing verses and then a chorus, still not quite knowing where it would go. I just thought, this is going to be okay. You reach this point where you think, yeah, this will work. I just have to figure out where it's going.
Yeah.
And it's this odd combination of the conscious and the subconscious, I think. And sometimes, I mean, I might go to bed with the music going through my head or a verse going through my head, and I wake up and it's still there, but maybe it's developed a little bit and something then reveals itself to me. It's really odd. I don't know if anybody else finds like this, who writes, but to me, it's the most mysterious thing imaginable. It's not, I never get like a flash of inspiration and 10 minutes later, there's a song. That just doesn't happen to me. People say it does to them, but I can't imagine writing a song in 10 minutes. I spent so long over the lyrics. I mean, it might take months on one line. Honestly, I'm just manic about it. But there's something that kicks you off usually, and if you just have to trust the process and start it, and maybe you'll think, oh, that's not right, I'm going to change, I'm going to go back to the beginning, start and go in a different direction. Or maybe after a couple of verses you think, oh, I know where this is going. Or maybe you'll think, actually that first verse should be the last verse because that's the point of the song, you know. So there's a lot of, I guess I'd say there's a lot of craft involved at that point. There might be some inspiration to start, but then it's about tweaking and adjusting and carving things. And that's a not very good metaphor really, but you know, it's about constructing it as opposed to a flash of inspiration and it comes through you as if it came from who knows where.
Yeah.
I wish, but that's not how it happens for me. So I might get a song more or less nailed in maybe a week, but then I'll spend a long time in my head thinking, which of those two lines do I prefer? And it might be just one word that's different between two lines, but which is it? Which will sing more naturally? You know, which will deliver the emotional side of what I'm trying to say better? And then you have to decide at some point, I'm going to try it out. I'm going to try it out on an audience because, I mean, songs are about communication, aren't they? They're not. I said I've been playing some instrumental guitar, and it's like a little puzzle. It's like doing a jigsaw puzzle almost. You know, I'm going to work out how to play this. I'm going to execute this piece of music. I can do it now. And that's been a very pleasant experience. And now I can play that tune. So that's great. I can't do that with songs because what's the point of it unless someone hears it? It's a two-way street. It's not just about the creative process unless you want to sing to yourself. So there comes a point, I think, in the writing process where you think, I don't know if it's quite finished yet, but I'm going to try it and see if I get any reaction. And that can be a dangerous thing because you might just find that on the day you do it, no one's listening and you think it's a terrible song, but actually it's not. It's just
the right time for it.
No one heard it, you know.
Yeah.
And then maybe 2 years later, you think, oh, I'm going to change that line because I realized I could have done it. I could have done it better. But the strange thing is, I don't know if you find this, but you might think, oh, this is a great song. I'm really pleased with this. This is one of my top 3 songs, and it gets no reaction from anybody whatsoever. And then some piece of fluff that you knocked off in, you know, well, not 20 minutes in my case, maybe a week. Lightweight song, there people love it. You know, who can say that?
Yeah, it's really hard
for me to tell people what to take from it, isn't it?
We found it the same with my band. We always said that it was interesting how like you'd write a song and like it'd always be really exciting writing the song, and we'd think like this is going to be one that's going to be like one of our popular ones, and we'll do it every night. Or this would be a new closer or something like that. And then like just naturally we'd let the songs kind of settle. We never wrote set lists with my band, but always just like we choose our first couple of songs, then we just go from there. And so we'd find like which songs came to mind when we were like between songs. Well, we'll do that. What should we do next? We'll do that one. And then certain songs would just always be like top of our mind, like that's a good one to do now. And other ones would just wouldn't make the cut. And it was always that interesting thing of like when you write them, it's always like, oh, this is going to be a really good one. But it just didn't, like certain songs just didn't naturally fit into sets the way other ones did.
No. But you see, I think that's another thing that if I could tell you what I think my 2 or 3 best songs are, but someone else who knows my songs might have completely different favorites, and that's absolutely the way it should be. Of course,
there's not an objective which song's better than other.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I've got several books on songwriting, none of which I've ever read because I just can't. I don't think you can teach someone how to do it. I mean, it's interesting to know someone's insights into it. There's a book by Jimmy Webb called Tunesmith, which is a very interesting book to read. I have read that one, but it's not a songwriting manual because I think that's a bit weird. And I've run songwriting workshops, but I don't try and teach people how to do it. Who am I to teach anyone how to do it? For goodness sake, you know.
Yeah, I always think of it like there's kind of tools and things that you could show people, but it's the putting them together is like a unique process. And like, the separating the craft from the inspiration. So like you can give people some of the tools that you can use for the craft of like, this might be how you might structure different things. And these are like some chord sequences that might work together, but there's no hard set rules, is there? It's like, these are some ways you might do something. And then your ideas of the inspiration of what you're going to write about. Again, like you can kind of give prompts of like, these are some things you might write about, but there's no like, this is the way to do it.
Well, no, but the trouble is, last time I did one of these workshop things, the people I was talking to were really, you could tell they were desperate to do something. They didn't have a clue where to start. So it's all a bit too airy-fairy if you just talk in general terms. And I actually came up with, I called it a 5-step approach to songwriting. It sounds ridiculous, really. But it was more what I have learned through the process. I don't think of this as a manual or a method of doing it, and I don't apply it in my own way. But if you've never done it, you might find it interesting to know that there are things to think about, like what's the structure of the song? You know, what's the key? Are you going to have music that reflects the lyrics? Are you going to have music that's the opposite of the lyrics to give a contrast? You know, dark and light. You know, one of the key things that I think I try and get across to people is, for goodness sake, be prepared to edit, because most of my songs would go like 7 or 8 minutes if I didn't get disciplined after I've written all these words and then start cutting it out to, you know, how do I get the core of it in the minimum number of words? And you know, I was brought up in a time when the best pop songs were like 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
And if you can get the message, Smokey Robinson could do it in 2 minutes, why can't I? You know?
Yeah.
But it's difficult for sure.
And I think something what people don't always appreciate with songwriting is that it's, you know, like it's something you need to practice at. So like, you know, your first song probably isn't going to be your best song, that you learn from each song. So again, going back to the workshops, that's something I always thought with the ones I've done is like, you can give people a roadmap to write a particular song, and like, it's probably not going to be the best song, but it's going to get them to write a song. And then they'll learn from that to go on to write another song. And then, you know what I mean? Like, you can kind of say, today we're going to write a song about this, and this is the way we're going to do it. Because that's the way of getting one song done. And then you can go on to writing using some tools and adapting them as you go.
Yeah, and the first 5 you might never use, but you've learned through that process. And in fact, you might steal little bits from them for future songs. Yeah. One of the things I was thinking recently, I've probably written maybe, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 songs that I just don't perform. And I was thinking, why is that? And sometimes it's because the first time I performed them, I made a mess of it. And I never wanted to risk that again. Other times it's that I never felt I quite got it right somehow. It was more or less there, but there was one verse too many, but I couldn't get rid of any of the verses. Other times I've just changed since I wrote them. You know, I once tried to write a song I say most of what I do is kind of bluesy based, country blues type based. And I tried to write a song in that vein because I'm not really comfortable singing. I can't sing a Robert Johnson song. It just doesn't work for me. I admire and respect people who do, but I can't do it. But I thought, well, I can write something in that style. And I did. And I just in the end felt uncomfortable with the subject of it. I mean, I won't go into detail because it's not a song I perform anyway, but you know, songs of the 1930s, a lot of them were quite misogynistic. A lot of them were about, I'm going to stab people or shoot people or whatever. I just can't authentically do that. Yeah. I'm afraid. So I've got to write a song from my perspective. One of the best compliments I was ever paid, someone did a YouTube video of a song of mine. The song's entitled "It's Called the Blues," and he put it on YouTube, and he said he called it a very English blues song. And I thought, well, that's great, because I'm entitled to do that. I may not feel entitled to write about, you know, the experience of African Americans in the 30s in Mississippi, but I am entitled to write a song in that
English blues
style, but you know, from the perspective of someone in my position. Yeah. But I think something you said before sort of struck a chord with me, no pun intended. It's got to be authentic when you write a song to you, unless you're writing it for somebody else. I think you've got to have a relationship with that song that it's a true voice that you're speaking in. The first time I recorded, I didn't realize. In fact, it was the song "It's Called the Blues." I didn't realize until the guy recording it said, "You do realize you put on an American accent there, don't you?" And I hadn't done, but I'd sung a word sounding like I was American. I'll never do that again, because I'm not American and it's not real to me. So you've got to feel that it's you coming across, and that if you're not used to performing, I think that's one of the difficulties, because you think, you know, I've got to sell myself. I've got to sell this performance. I've got to sell what I'm saying. And oh my God, does anyone want to hear? Well, if it's not really you, then why should they listen? That means you're a fake, you know. But if it is you, then if you've got to be confident. And what you were saying about you've got to build up a body of work before you're confident in that you've got something to say. I was very lucky because the first song I wrote, it still shocks me this. I actually won a songwriting competition, and I was absolutely stunned by this. But that's what led me to write another one, you know, because I thought, well, I can't validate myself. I just don't know. But someone validated me, and so that led me to carry on. That's and great. Then you get to the point where you've written 4 songs, 5 songs, 10 songs, 15 songs, and then you start thinking, well, there are some are up here and some are not so good, but they're still worth doing. And maybe this one I'll come back to later. And actually, some of the ones that I keep meaning to go back to, I think there's a good song in there. I just need to go and do a bit more crafting on it, you know.
Yeah.
And then I get a free song effectively because I did all the work, most of the work a long time ago.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a fascinating process, and I think that's one of the elements that's often overlooked when people think about songwriting, is that the difficulty in finding what your voice is in a way and what you're trying to say in your songs. Because it's the other thing people kind of have a lot at the start is to think like all a rock song's got to be about this, or if you're going to write a folk song, it's got to be about this, and you've got to say these kind of things. And it's it's not the case, is it? There is kind of themes that are traditional, but like you can, it's, as you say, there's that journey of finding what your influences are and what your voice is, and then being comfortable expressing it. That is
well, at the heart of it, it's storytelling, isn't it? Whether it's a story about you, or it's a story about someone else, or it's a story about a concept, or a protest song. It's a story. They're all stories, really. You are telling someone a story. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. Might not have a definitive meaning for the same meaning for everyone, but stories don't either, do they? So I think of songs as having a sort of a narrative arc, you know, the way people who are writing for movies have. You don't tell the story in the first 10 minutes, do you? You know, it starts, you build, you have a sort of a shape to the story, and it has to have a satisfactory conclusion one way or another. Even if the conclusion is, oh my God, what was that all about? I'm going to have to think about this for days, yeah. So there's got to be some sort of shape there, I think. And really, I mean, this is leading into the second thing about the tips for songwriters. There's got to be a purpose to a song for me, and that doesn't mean it's got to have some grand message by any means. The purpose might be make people speak tap and make them sing along on a chorus. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. But I think there has to be some reason for a song to exist.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Let's transition into section 2 then, shall we? So this is where I ask for a songwriting tip. I know we've kind of covered quite a lot of tips in that section, I think, but what's the specific tip you've chosen?
I think it is about, the song needs a reason to exist. Don't be ashamed. Don't think, oh, I'm not up to creating something that has a reason to exist. If you're telling a story, it might be a funny song, might have a payoff, a joke, a sort of a revelation. It might be a ballad that literally tells the story. I mean, the old style ballad as opposed to the soppy type ballad, It could be a love song that has a purpose to express how you feel about something. It could be a love song that has a purpose so people can relate to, the pain of love going wrong. The song of mine that was an alternative choice to Shorty's Day, and my wife keeps saying I should have chosen that one, is a song called Dancing Your Troubles Away. And I wrote that for myself as mental therapy after I was ill. I had something that I was fine, actually, but if it hadn't been discovered, it could have been the end of me. And that was quite a profound experience for me. And I wrote this song as a sort of therapy for myself, to work out how it had made me feel about the rest of my life. So even if I play that, I mean, I've put some jokes in it so that people can relate to it when I sing it. But in the end, that song is for me. The purpose of that song is for me. But most songs, they may start off as being, my need to express something, or my decision to craft a piece of work that I will perform at a gig. but in the end, it has to have some meaning, either for me or for the audience. Otherwise, what's the point? And that's why I find the craft thing interesting. The craft thing is all about taking this amalgam of music and words and ideas and format and getting it into the best shape it could possibly be, so that it both says what I want it to say and has the best chance of being relatable to someone who hears it. And there's a sort of another side even to that. That is effectively my tip. Make sure that there is a purpose to the finished song. Not when you start writing, though, because when you start writing, you might just start, well, let me think, blah, blah, blah. The sun was in the sky and the birds were flying around. It doesn't really matter where you start.
That was going to be my question. I was going to ask if you start with a purpose. If you start with, I'm going to write a song about this, this is the purpose.
I sometimes wake up with a line in my head, a lyric line, and that might suggest a song. I'm not even going to say what a song would be about, because it just might suggest a sort of a vague area for a song to cover. But no, I think the purpose will reveal itself when you know that you've finished it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If it never does, then it will never be finished. The song will go into that pile of things that never quite made it.
And then that's the purpose of that song, was just for you to learn that not all songs are
going to be. Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
Maybe so. But so I think what I'm saying is, you can either start with, oh, I've got a great idea here, and I know already why this song will need to exist, and I know where it's going to go. Or it could be, I'm bereft of inspiration. I'm just going to look out and I'm going to write the first line that comes to my head, and I'm going to take it from there and see where it goes. And that can still end up with a perfectly good song that needs to exist, because you just needed that trigger. And I think when you're talking to people who want to write songs, the most common thing they say is, I don't know where to start. And actually, just sit down and start. You don't need to know where to start, do you? Yeah. If you just start with a chord sequence or a melody that you can whistle, or some words, any words. I mean, famously, Paul McCartney had dummy words for yesterday, didn't he? Scrambled eggs, scrambled eggs, scrambled eggs. I've done that before, not with scrambled eggs, but I've done it where, I just have place saver words. But start somewhere, either start knowing what it's going to be, or just start anyway and trust that you'll find where it's going to be. But it's not finished until you know why it had to exist. This is incredibly sort of mystical, doesn't it? But it's more what I've learned as opposed to how I've approached things. It's just looking back on what I've done over the years. I think that's at the heart of it. And as I say, the reason to exist doesn't have to be a big, deep and meaningful reason. It can be, I just wanted to say how happy I am today.
Yeah.
People will relate to it.
Yeah. And I really like what you said about the song, you writing it as a way of processing what you were going through after your health scare. That sometimes that's a real good purpose of a song. So I'm a big advocate for writing songs. Like we were talking earlier about the need of performing songs, which I do agree with as well. A lot of the time is that we always said that a song's not really be alive until you've shared it in a way. Yeah. But then also like I encourage people to write songs even if they don't intend to share them with anyone. If just you write that song and you've got something out of it, even if it's not shared, it's still that process has been becoming beneficial. And the idea of it being a way of working through that's something that comes up a lot with Swan Song, is people come in and they're in a difficult situation, and the songwriting process helps them make sense of what's going on. And it can then be a constant reminder as well. I don't know if that's what that song is for you, that every time you play that song, I know that song, it reminds you of that lesson you learned then. And is that an accurate way of talking about it?
Absolutely. But I think one thing I would say is, even if you wrote it for yourself, even if you wrote it with no intention of performing it, share it with somebody, because someone will get something out of it. People love music. People love songs. It's the soundtrack to life, isn't it, really? And, even if you wrote it just for yourself, that doesn't mean someone else won't get something out of it. Because the best songs have some sort of universality to them, don't they? That, they're about what it is to be human. And that's what love songs are about. Everyone can relate I assume most people have been in love at some point in their life, so everyone can relate to it. And there's nothing more powerful than something that touches that emotional nerve. And that, go back to where we started with the Saudade thing with Shortest Day. You know, that I think nostalgia and sort of the bittersweet nature of how life can be. There's the topic. You know, what more topics do you need? Life is the topic, really, especially the emotional side of life. But if your song is, you know, a sing-along, la 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 Eurovision song, great, you know, but let someone else hear it as well. Because it's like at the minute we're all stuck in and we're not, you know, we can't meet people, we can talk to them, but we can't really interact the way humans like to interact. So however someone came to write a song, however much you might think, you know, it's a pretty raw thing. It's not had all the craft place. It doesn't matter, actually. The sharing is the key thing. And even if you can't say, the reason I actually, I mean, I wrote a couple of instrumentals and then I wrote a song, and I'd never sung in my life. And I thought, well, I've got to do something. Who else is going to sing this song? I'm going to have to sing this song. That was the biggest hurdle for me, was singing in public, you know?
Yeah.
But people liked it. I couldn't believe it, you know. I thought, I've got no right to write a song. I don't know what I'm doing. People liked it. I was really stunned. And even if it doesn't matter how simple it is, share it. I think it's important to try and do that.
There is a magic to sharing music with people, and yeah, and it's another thing. I mean, I guess there's a thing with people worry a lot about the songs being good enough, whereas like really it's like any song's good enough. It's like, you know, I've said earlier, there's not a good or bad scale with songs, is there? There's just songs, and like, yeah, it'll connect. Someone will resonate with your song.
Yeah, and do you know what? A lot of people will say to you, "Oh, I could never have done that," because a lot of people think they couldn't. They don't know where to start. But people have got reserves of talent that I think it's really sad if they never come out. You know, we might all think, well, I could have played centre forward for England, or, well, no. But, you know, all the things I could have done in life, you can still write a song. I don't care whether you've ever had any experience of it, whether you thought you could do it, whether you think you've got any musical talent. It doesn't really matter. Anyone can hum or whistle. You've heard thousands of songs in your life. Tell a story, get something out that needs to come out. Say something that someone else might be able to relate to. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same. I think it's just the most amazing. I'm not going to call it a gift, because I don't think it is a gift. I think it's just something you decide to have a go at. And for years, I didn't write a song till I was 50 maybe. And I played guitar for a long time before that. But I just thought, this is what all those creative urges that I've had over the years. I was into photography, or, you know, blah, 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 short stories, whatever. This is the outlet I needed. You know, this is the thing that really floats my boat in terms of creating something. And then the reason I've recorded songs is to think, well, I'm not going to say it's for posterity, because that's a bit precious, but there they are, they exist. They wouldn't have existed if I hadn't lived. So that's a record of my life, and no one can take that away, you know. And maybe, you know, when you're gone, your family can say, he's still here.
Yeah.
He's still here in those songs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with you completely, Richard. And that seems like a good note to move on to the next section of the podcast, which is where I ask my guests to share with us a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. And what I do here is I'll put the YouTube link in the description to the episode. So if you're watching or listening to this and you're not familiar with the song, you want to go check it out, you can follow that link and come back and we're going to have a chat about it. So which song did you choose for us, Richard?
Well, let me just talk about it a bit first before I say it, because this was the most interesting and difficult part of preparing for this, really. It's a bit like when people say, what would your desert island discs be? You know, how can I possibly narrow it down? I thought about several candidates for this song, but most of them were by unknown people. And most of them were very much the melancholy side of bereavement, you know, that awful, awful gaping hole, that loss. I remember when both my parents died at relatively young ages, really. But I remember that feeling of the world's just changed, and it's just guttural, you know. And I thought, well, that's one type of song about bereavement, and they're very powerful songs. But I thought two things. Firstly, I think I'd like to choose something that people might know, people might remember, because this song was actually, I think it was a hit. It was certainly a song that was played on the radio when it was released, and also something that had a little bit more of the light side and not so much the dark side. So that it was something about the possibility of life being good again after bereavement. And in fact, as I was thinking this, I heard this song on the radio. I thought, well, that's it. And this song was written by Ellie Greenwich, who was a sort of Timpan Alley songwriter in the early 60s. I think she wrote Leader of the Pack and River Deep Mountain High, maybe, or co-wrote them anyway. And her original version of this is on YouTube, and it's a really good version, actually. It's kind of Northern Soul style. The words, I'm pretty sure, were written as a song about love gone wrong, because that's what songs were written about then. But I just listened to them and I thought, this absolutely applies also to a feeling of loss when someone's died and you're thinking, will I ever feel good again? I mean, it could have been written for that purpose. There's not a single word in it that doesn't work in that context. And that's what I was saying before about layers, you know. I'm sure that this wasn't written as a song that might make people feel better after losing someone, but it absolutely works, I think, in that context. It's not just melancholy, it's hopeful. And it's by Elkie Brooks, and it's called Sunshine After the Rain.
Yeah, it's a powerful song. It's one like when you sent me it, I was like, oh yeah, I think I know this one. I heard the chorus tune in my head, and then I listened to it, and I was like, I don't know where I've heard it before. I don't know why I'm familiar with it, but it's definitely a song that I remember. And yeah, I really like because it's kind of like, because it's not uplifting song, really, isn't it? But when you listen to the lyrics, it's sad, and like you say, it can connect to multiple different, any difficult situation, really, and that longing for the sunshine after the rain.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, she was briefly quite successful, Elkie Brooks. She was a singer in a band called Vinegar Joe with what's his name, Robert Palmer, and it was a real kind of heavy rock band, you know. And then she had a few hit singles, and some of them are a bit schmaltzy, but she's a very good singer. And this is just, I think she makes a fantastic job of this song, and it's so different to the original. If you track down the original by Ellie Greenwich, it's completely different.
Yeah,
but I think it's got that sort of sense of longing for show me some light after all this darkness, and I just thought it would fit perfectly for this choice.
Yeah, it's a great choice. A good balance of those. Like the problem with lots of happy songs are that they're unrealistic because there's like without a element of sadness. And then there can be the other element where the songs are just too sad that nobody wants to listen to them unless they're in a really sad spot. So it's getting that balance where
this is both. This lets you wallow in it, but it reminds you that actually, you know, you can start looking ahead. It's saudade again, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Secret of life.
We've come full circle. Brilliant. Yeah, thanks a lot, Richard. It's really nice talking to you.
Yeah,
thanks for sharing your songs with us. And I'll put your links and everything in the description. Have you got anything coming up that you want to mention?
Frankly, no. Like everybody else, I had gigs cancelled, when this all started. So we're all just in limbo, aren't we? But I've been so glad to do this because it has reawakened my desire to get on with it. I've been in this odd state of not quite knowing, what to do. What's the meaning of it all? But I have kept in touch with friends who play, and we've gone past the shortest day. There's hope on the horizon, and even if this coming year isn't a normal year, it's going to be a lot better than last year was. And I can't wait to get out there and start playing again and writing too. Yeah.
And hopefully we'll meet at a gig someday.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah, thanks a lot for your time, Richard. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'll be back with another episode soon.